Welcome back into End Zone Insights. I'm your host, Darius Fitzpatrick, and we're going to be doing more episodes on YouTube. So this will be a more frequent thing, but sometimes there will be a little bit of stops. It could be a few weeks where there isn't as many episodes on the channel, just based on timing and schedule. I am still currently busy with other stuff, but yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to be busy talking about some news around the NFL. And one headline that I thought was particularly important was the decision between, or the battle between Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders coming up this year. As we heard from the owner, Jimmy Johnson of the Cleveland Browns, that they would be having a position battle between the two quarterbacks on who would be QB1 over this season. And now many people are saying that Deshaun Watson has a very good chance of winning the job based on purely his contract size and what he has to make, as he still has his entire contract guaranteed at this point and is taking up a bulk of the Cleveland Browns salary cap at this point in time. But the main difference is that Shedeur Sanders is a fifth round pick. He has a very small salary, so it doesn't make him obligated to pick him in any way to be the starting quarterback. He is lucky just at this point to be in the conversation of being the next starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, as many people thought that Kevin Stefanski of the Cleveland Browns was doing everything in his power to make sure Shedeur Sanders didn't try and win the starting job and didn't have success, which there were some skeptical things that was going on and he didn't handle it well, but I don't believe that he was actively trying to stop Shedeur Sanders from having success with the Cleveland Browns. But anyway, but between the two quarterbacks, I would definitely go with Shedeur Sanders to win the starting job, and that's not my personal opinion. I mean, I believe that he will win the starting job this coming season. Because if we look at Deshaun Watson, the whole reason they brought in Deshaun Watson was to bring him back to playoff football and to put something better on the field. That was the whole reason why they got rid of Baker Mayfield. Even though Baker Mayfield was not a bad quarterback by any means with Cleveland, he was just not what they were looking for. That was the main problem. They didn't think he would be able to elevate this team to the point where they were Super Bowl contenders, and they believed that Deshaun Watson would be able to, despite the fact that despite the fact that he was out for a entire season, due to allegations of sexual misconduct among multiple massage women. And so if you look at and ever since he got to Cleveland, since then, it has been a disaster. If you look at the stats, his QBR in 2022 was 40.4, 2023, 43.7, and then 2024, 21 QBR. A total QBR of 21. And all those years, except for, if you look, his first year with the Cleveland Browns in 2022, he was not able to complete the entire season because most of the season he was suspended. Like 3/4 of the season he was suspended, and by the time he got back, he was not able to go to the form that he was before. 2023, he is only able to play in 6 games, as well as he was unfortunately suffered a season-ending injury. But after that point, we saw that the Cleveland Browns were able to skyrocket themselves into the playoffs with Joe Flacco, showing that he was the main thing holding the Browns back. And then in 2024, he played in a total of 7 games, and that was his worst season of all. He was playing absolutely terribly. And then he has a season-ending Achilles injury, which takes him out of not only the 2024 season, but the entirety of the 2025 season. And so if you look at all of that, he is not going to be in a good physical form once he gets back with the Cleveland Browns in 2026. He's going to be trying to rehab himself still. He's going to be trying to get back into the groove of things. While Shedeur Sanders, this entire offseason, has been able to go a full 100%. He hasn't had to hold himself back because of the fact he hasn't had to deal with the season-ending injury that's kept him out for so long. He's going to be able to understand the offense better because he's going to take more first-team reps with the Cleveland Browns. And then you look at the fact that Shedeur Sanders has more potential than Deshaun Watson at this point in time. I understand people are going to be like, Deshaun Watson was considered one of the best quarterbacks when he was with the Texans. But that was many years ago, and at this point, we haven't seen anything resembling the potential he had with the Houston Texans. We still see that with we still see that with Shedeur Sanders. And the difference with this is the final year of Deshaun Watson's contract, and just put it into this perspective. Let's say this: Shedeur Sanders, he wins the starting spot, and he's able to elevate himself where he is the legitimate starter in 2027. They get rid of Deshaun Watson after that season. They have a huge cap number, not only because he's still on a rookie deal, but because he is a fifth round pick. So they're able to spend much more money than they would have if they had Deshaun Watson. Because if they keep Deshaun Watson, even if Deshaun Watson is the starter for 2026, I do not believe I do not believe that they will keep him after this season, because I don't believe any sort of I believe he would have to take a complete masterful season from Deshaun Watson to keep his job in 2026, I mean in 2027, due to the fact he's been so bad these last few years that's hard to ignore it. And then you look at the fact of his contract. He would need us. He would either have to take a really, really, really small contract after that, and I don't know if Deshaun Watson is willing to do that. And again, this all goes back to, can he get back to that peak form that he was at? And I do not believe he can do that, especially considering how many injuries he has had these last few years. Because he's had a total of 51 games he could have played in. He's only with the Cleveland Browns. He's only played in 19 of those games. And so when you look at all of that, and you think about the fact that Todd Monken, who's now the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, he tried to draft Shedeur Sanders with the Baltimore Ravens. The only reason was that Shedeur Sanders said he didn't want to go to the Baltimore Ravens because he knew he had no chance of starting there. But Todd Monken liked him enough that he was willing to draft Shedeur Sanders way before the Cleveland Browns were going to. I think it was like the fourth, maybe third round. That and Todd Monken was willing to draft Shedeur Sanders. And so you think of all of that, and so he clearly likes him enough that he's willing to draft him. And there's also reports coming out that Shedeur Sanders has been in the weight room every single day, where you see Dylan Gabriel and Deshaun Watson, even though Deshaun Watson really can't because he's still trying to get better. There's still some things Deshaun Watson can do to get back into better form, and they haven't been there. Shedeur Sanders has been there, and so you got the leadership aspect of those things, and you got the leadership aspect, and Shedeur Sanders is doing much better at that point. Deshaun Watson has been reportedly a person who is a lot more quiet than others, so that's not going to help with the leadership factor of this all. He hasn't been in good physical form at all. We saw signs from Shedeur Sanders in 2026 to the point that he was clearly not just a regular fifth round pick, that he deserves to have another shot. And so I truly do believe, I understand they will have a starting quarterback competition this coming summer, but I don't believe that it will take long for the Cleveland Browns to realize, yes, if we have any chance of even being somewhat competitive in 2026, we are going to start Shedeur Sanders, because Shedeur Sanders has much more potential than Deshaun Watson. He's not going to be limited because of the humongous injuries that Deshaun Watson has. And Shedeur Sanders, his small contract will allow for a much brighter future with the Cleveland Browns. Whereas Deshaun Watson, he still has some major flaws, and I don't believe that he can truly get over those flaws within the next few years. And I do believe that if Deshaun Watson cannot win this starting spot this year, I believe this will be the end of his NFL career, because I don't believe any other NFL team will want Deshaun Watson after this whole mess that was created because of his humongous contract situation. I don't think anyone's going to want to take on anywhere close to that, and I don't think anyone's going to want to deal with the situation that was put on Cleveland with Deshaun Watson in the horrible quarterback situation that was put on because of him, especially an injury-prone quarterback who's had massive season-ending injuries twice in a row that's kept him out for 3 years in a row. Well, that's going to wrap up this segment, and we'll finish this episode off with talking about the quarterback battle between Keelon Russell and Austin Mack in Alabama, and some recent reports we got from Alabama's spring practice on Saturday. Welcome back into End Zone Insights, and we just finished covering up the Cleveland Browns quarterback battle that is currently going on is going to be going on during the summer of this year. But now I'm going to shift over to another quarterback battle, but that is going to be on the college side of things, involving Alabama between two quarterbacks, redshirt freshman Keelon Russell and redshirt junior, sorry, redshirt sophomore Austin Mack. Kind of messed up right there, but anyway, we have two quarterback battles going on right there, and they just finished up their game on Saturday this week, and there's a lot to take away from it, especially considering the fact that we saw Keelan Russell take 9 drives while Austin Mack only took 5. Now it is being reported from Kalen DeBoer that Austin Mack was hurt during this game, so he did not play the majority of the snaps, and that is the main reason why Keelan Russell got the majority of the snaps. Now, it is still fair to look at what happened on this day and see that this could definitely change how the quarterback battle could be shaping up. Because a lot of people believe that it was going to be Austin Mack that would win the starting spot because he's been in the system for so long. He was with Kalen DeBoer when he was at Washington. Then he transferred over to Alabama when Kalen DeBoer went to Alabama, and people thought that Austin Mack was going to win the starting spot last year, but was unable to do so as Ty Simpson had beat him out. Now he's battling for the starting spot yet again with Alabama, and many people believe that if Austin Mack had transferred somewhere else, he would be able to start there. But because he's been at Alabama and because so many people go into Alabama, they always get these super high prospects. He has not been able to compete again. He's had to compete against super high level individuals. Now the same thing is happening as he's going up against Keelan Russell, who is the number 2 ranked prospect coming out of his high school class 2 years ago. And last year, he was able to beat Keelan Russell for the number 2 quarterback spot. But going into this season, we all thought that it was going to be Austin Mack, again, because he's much more experienced than Keelan Russell. But reports have been coming out that it's been a very not consistent, but it's been a very tight battle between the two. And the thing that people thought that Austin Mack would be better at, his consistency has not been there, despite the fact that he's been in the system for much larger time than Keelan Russell. And then we go into the spring game, and then Keelan Russell absolutely balls out. We see that Keelan Russell, this comes from CBS Sports, in the spring game, in the 9 drives that he had, he completed 20 of 32 passes for 229 yards and 4 touchdowns, and many of those touchdowns came during competitive red zone work. Now, looking at all of that, and you think to yourself, man, that is a really impressive showing by Keelan Russell, it begs the question, could he really beat out Austin Mack for the starting spot? Because many people thought that it was going to be Austin Mack, and there wasn't a chance that Keelan Russell could win the starting spot. But the thing that keeps coming out from these reports is that Keelan Russell is a highly traded athlete with he is such a dangerous dual threat athlete, and he has been able to make these NFL-like throws that it begs the question, is Austin Mack going to be able to beat him out? Because I said on my podcast that if the battle is very close by the end of summer practices, I'll go with Keelan Russell because I do believe that Kalen DeBoer is on the hot seat at Alabama because of how high the pressure is for an Alabama fan base, specifically for football. And so he needs to pick out the best quarterback for the team. And everyone knows that Keelan Russell has a much higher ceiling than Austin Mack. And that's no disrespect to Austin Mack. Austin Mack has a high ceiling as well. It's just the fact that Keelan Russell has these abilities that very, very, very few people have that makes people wonder, can he really be able to lead Alabama back to the promised land of winning the national championship game like they were able to a few years ago? And and this is the thing I brought up also on my podcast, is that it would take some time for Keelan Russell to truly get adapted to the level that the college game is truly at, because he was not able to take many snaps in actual college games because Austin Mack was the quarterback ahead of him. So when Ty Simpson would go out, per se, for games that, let's say, they were destroying teams, or in that Indiana game where Ty Simpson got hurt, Austin Mack would get the snaps instead of Keelon Russell. So Austin Mack has that ahead of him. But we all know that Austin Mack does not have the abilities that Keelon Russell has. If Keelon Russell is showing you these incredible abilities that he has in practices or in this game right here, then people are going to start thinking to themselves, this is the guy who should start for Alabama next year. It shouldn't be Austin Mack, who, despite the fact he's been in the system for so long, has been inconsistent. It should be the guy who has more traits and the higher ceiling and the guy who gives us a better chance of going further. Now, it would take some time because he is only a redshirt freshman. That is the biggest thing with Keelon Russell. He's only a redshirt freshman, so he would desire some time to get used to the college game, and we've seen that. We saw that last year with CJ Carr and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They were a team that was looking to fight for a playoff spot, and even though they didn't get in, it was not because of CJ Carr. The reason they did not get in was because their defense was not able to hold off Texas A&M in that final drive in week 2. The reason why was because they weren't able to protect CJ Carr on that final drive to try and win the game against Miami. He did have some many redshirt freshman moments in his first year as a starter, but the reason they were not in the playoffs and the reason they were not competing for a national championship was not because of CJ Carr. And I think that's kind of what Alabama fans are hoping for. They're hoping that, yes, Keelon Russell, it is most likely if he were to start, he would find some troubles, but he can adapt. But they're hoping that he can adapt to it quickly, or to the point where the mistakes he's making is not costing them games. I think that's the main thing that people are hoping for. And I think after the spring game, people are seeing that that is a real possibility, that they could truly start this guy and they can really be competitive for competing for a national championship. Now, if you look at the schedule that Alabama has, they first and I'll pull up the schedule right now. I'm looking at it. Give me a second to pull it up. But if you look at Alabama's schedule, their first game is against their first game is against East Carolina. Their second game is against Kentucky. Third game, Florida State. Fourth game, South Carolina, and their fifth game is against Mississippi State. That's not the hardest of schedules, so they could easily start off 5-0, and Keelon Russell could be learning to adapt to the system of of college football. And by the time they go to play Georgia in week 6, he could have fully adapted to the level of speed that is the college game. They could have developed him properly in that short period of time because those teams, Florida State and South Carolina, they could give Alabama some trouble, but I do not anticipate anything happening between Florida State and South Carolina in those games. And so you look at all that and you think to yourself, if Keelon Russell is truly able to have these incredible abilities that people are describing, and that he was able to show that he continues to show what he has, and if even if Austin Mack gets close to where he was earlier, and if it's still a tight battle, I would definitely go with Keelon Russell, and I think this just showed to the fans that the true starter next year, unless things drastically change over the course of the summer, it should be Keelon Russell. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of End Zone Insights. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please check out the Spotify channel. There's a link in the description at the bottom if you guys are hoping to listen to that. But anyway, I'll try and post some more episodes soon, and I'll see y'all later.